Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Wayne's World of Science and Technology, where I take a quick, short look at a couple things that are happening and try and simplify them. Today, we're going to look at China and, to a certain extent, at Peter Zeihan. Peter Zeihan has been claiming that China is about to collapse due to demographic implosion. That is kind of correct and kind of not correct. China is definitely going to shrink, and I mean, the Chinese government is well aware of that. The demography is not, however, totally unsustainable. And the problems that China has been facing over the last 50 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, are the same problems that every other country's been facing. In a lot of cases, it's easier to take a simple solution and try and use that than to actually dig in and find a full solution. So what you'll end up with is misaligned incentives. China wanted to expand manufacturing to provide employment. So they put a lot of incentives in certain places. And as a result, they now have enough solar panel construction capability to take care of the entire world's solar panel needs, something like 1.25 times over. That is a massive overbuild. Basically, a lot of resources have been wasted in building to produce stuff that they will never be able to sell. And something similar has happened in automotive, where they have something like 100 small automobile manufacturers plus a couple big ones. And there are incentives to build new energy vehicles, electric cars in other words. But the incentives are such that it is quite possible that a company can turn around, get the incentive for building the car, then not sell it, or at least not directly sell it. What they do is they turn around and they sell it as a new used vehicle, I guess is the best way of putting it. You're effectively buying it as a used vehicle, even though it's brand new, because that way they get around paying some of the fees that the government would make them pay if it was a sale. So this cuts out government. This reduces government resources because they're not getting the tax money that they should. And it also reduces government resources because they spent a whole pile of money building stuff that is not going to produce any payoff. We see a similar thing like in some cases they've tried to push GDP up by building extra railway stations. And you end up with a situation where there's 2 railway stations in one city, and neither of them has enough business to survive, so they have to close one to keep the other going. And I said, I'm using China as an example here, but the same thing can be said about every country on this planet. They all do it. And the Chinese situation is quite eminently fixable if, and I said if, they manage to get their incentives realigned in a way that makes more organic sense. And when I say organic, economies normally grow organically. You've got a hole and somebody moves in to fill it, whether it's providing a new soft drink or providing a new vehicle. Somebody spots an opportunity, they move in. That is organic growth. Inorganic growth is when you basically incentivize one particular sector over all the rest and give that sector so many advantages that it just is so much it's worth so much more to go into that sector than to, say, try something else, which might actually be more productive in the long run. Misaligned incentives really, really mess things up. There's railway projects that were planned in Africa 20 years ago that were basically predicated on the fact that certain incentives were going to cause certain things to happen, and when they didn't, well, the railway project went to hell. And yes, part of it is forecasting, and I'll admit forecasting is not a simple science, but you really have to look at your incentive structure. Does your incentive structure make sense? Is it based on something that is sustainable in the long term? Does it work? And in a lot of cases, the incentive structures that our politicians worldwide set up just don't work. And they keep on making the same stupid mistakes because simple is faster than doing it right. Anyway, that's it for this morning, or at least for this round. Have a good day, folks. Like, share, subscribe, and all that guff if you got something out of this, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.